Hello. I just read one of my favorite stories. I read it this time every year. It's The Thanksgiving Visitor by Truman Capote. Today I also read it sort of as a palate cleanser. It's beautifully written. It's a story told from this perspective of an 8-year-old boy that lives in Alabama. It's Thanksgiving time, and he starts by telling you that there's a bully at school. His name is Odd Henderson, and he's the meanest little boy that you have ever met. And Odd Henderson picks on the narrator, who's kind of basically Truman Capote, and he doesn't like it. And he lives at home. He lives with his aunt, with his aunts and his uncle, who's the kind of the head of the household. And one of the aunts is Aunt Sook, and she's his friend, and they get along and they talk and have funny conversations. Capote is so wonderful about having these dotty characters through all these short stories. I love it. And they're all excited about Thanksgiving, and Aunt Sook calls him Buddy. So Buddy's the narrator, and he's complaining about the mean old bully at school, Odd Henderson. And as a solution, she tells him that he should invite Odd Henderson for Thanksgiving dinner. Well, little Buddy thinks that's a terrible idea, and he says, Odd Henderson hates me. And Aunt Sook says, well, that's because he doesn't know you. And little Buddy says, well, I hate him. And Aunt Sook says, that's because you don't know him either. Well, he refuses, and Aunt Sook, determined, goes over to Odd Henderson's house. And Odd Henderson kind of had the worst of it. His family had the worst of it because of the Great Depression, so they're extremely poor, much lesser off than Buddy's family. And she comes back and says, I invited him, and Odd Henderson seemed to be a nice little boy. He helped his mother with the chores, and he has a beautiful singing voice. Well, little Buddy basically goes into denial and says there's no way Odd Henderson will come to Thanksgiving dinner. And they talk about all the wonderful dishes that they're going to have for Thanksgiving, and he's excited the same way that a little boy would be excited for Christmas morning. And they describe the sweet potatoes and marshmallows, and raisins, and all these funny southern dishes. Well, Thanksgiving comes along, and all sorts of people show up, different family members, and then finally Odd Henderson shows up. Little Buddy's very upset, and kind of the way that children do, they basically ignore each other, and Buddy decides he's going to hide in the bathroom. A little while later, Odd Henderson goes in to use the bathroom, and Buddy's kind of peeking through a little crack, and he sees him open up a cigar box, and he takes out his aunt's, I think it was a brooch, takes out a brooch, slips it in his pocket. Well, Buddy comes up with a master plan, and so now it's Thanksgiving dinner proper. Everyone's at the table, all the family. Buddy's there, Odd Henderson, and Buddy announces that Odd Henderson is a thief. It says that he stole the Aunt Sook's brooch. Well, the uncle, the head of the household, says, everyone denies it. The boy's not saying anything. All the family members are kind of upset with Buddy for just making a wild accusation. And the uncle says, check the bathroom and see if the brooch is there. And Aunt Sook goes and she comes back and says, the brooch is there. You shouldn't have made a lie. Well, Odd Henderson then pulls the brooch out and puts it on the table. He says, "No, I did take it. I don't know why I took it." And he gets up and leaves. Buddy, feeling betrayed because his aunt lied for the little boy, took his side. He basically freaks out, he panics, runs out of the house, goes into a field. He's wearing his nice suit and gets all muddied up. A while later, Aunt Sook goes out and finds him, and they have a very sweet conversation, and the aunt is explaining to him that the little boy, when he took the brooch, it wasn't a calculated move. Whereas when Buddy announced at the dinner table that the brooch had been stolen, that was planned cruelty. It says that's the worst sin, is purposefully and intently trying to hurt somebody. It's even worse than stealing. And he sort of learns a lesson, and it's very sweet, and it's a nice story for Thanksgiving time. How do you see the people that you disagree with, and how do you behave towards them, and how do you treat other people? Lovely little story, beautifully written, perfectly paced, wonderful voice, just all around tender and wonderful and beautiful and great. It's The Thanksgiving Visitor by Truman Capote. I highly recommend it to anyone who might not have read it, and I recommend it to anyone that already has to read it this time of year. So leave a comment if you would like, and thank you for watching.